On December 5, 1945, the weather off the coast of Florida was 65 degrees with scattered clouds and a moderate wind. Under these ideal conditions, 5 Navy TBM Avengers, designated as Flight 19, took off on a routine training mission. The flight path sat within the Western Atlantic, a heavily traveled maritime region. If you draw a boundary from Miami to Bermuda, down to Puerto Rico, and back to Florida, you enclose an area that claims ships and planes with alarming regularity. These 5 Avengers were manned by 14 experienced airmen. They were flying a routine mission in aircraft fully fueled for a 1,000-mile range, a reserve 5 times greater than required. In a violent Caribbean storm, wreckage usually tells a story. But on this clear afternoon, not a single life raft, no oil slicks, and no bodies were recovered. The pattern here isn't one of weather-related accidents, but of total disappearances occurring during perfect conditions. At 3:15 p.m., the radio man at the Fort Lauderdale Tower expected a standard request for landing instructions. Instead, the flight leader's voice came through with an emergency transmission. He stated simply, "We cannot see land." The tower advised them to assume a bearing due west. The pilot replied that they didn't know which way west was. He reported that everything is wrong, and that even the ocean directly beneath them didn't look the way it should. Across the radio, the tower could hear the other pilots talking to each other. Panic was setting in. These were sophisticated torpedo bombers, yet their navigation systems were failing simultaneously across the entire formation. In a matter of minutes, a standard training exercise became an active fight for survival. Flight 19 had crossed an invisible threshold in the sky. A mechanical plague hit all 5 aircraft at once. Every magnetic and gyroscopic compass in the formation started spinning wildly, each pointing to a different, incorrect heading. The environment outside the cockpits warped just as quickly. The pilots radioed that the clear afternoon sky had suddenly turned a hazy, sickly yellow. Below them, the calm Atlantic morphed. The pilots reported they were entering whitewater, creating a blinding confusion of light and foam churning up from the ocean surface, entirely erasing the horizon. Then the heavy static rolled in. The planes could still hear each other, but the powerful transmitter at Fort Lauderdale was completely blocked. They were cut off from the mainland. Individual instruments can fail, but 5 independent panels do not die on cue. Flight 19 was trapped inside an environment that appeared to actively defy standard electromagnetic laws. These specific symptoms did not start or end in 1945. Decades later, other pilots and sailors who barely escaped the area described identical mechanical failures and atmospheric distortions. One civilian pilot watched his compass slowly revolve while his fuel gauges jumped to full. Then, the very wings of his plane began to emit a blinding, fuzzy bluish-green glow, so bright it blotted out the stars. Investigators have informally described this effect as electronic camouflage. It acts as a localized disruption that drains batteries, blinds radar, and traps vessels in a space where forward momentum appears to cease. Back in the hazy yellow sky of 1945, Flight 19 was fully engulfed in this effect. Their fuel was critically low, and the electronic camouflage left them completely disoriented. The Bermuda Triangle operates as an active mechanism, an environmental hazard zone that systematically blinds navigation and disables machinery. In the final moments, before the static consumed their signal entirely, a chilling transmission was reportedly heard. "Don't come after me." After that, silence. All 5 planes vanished. The crews sent no SOS, and they deployed no life rafts. Despite the Avengers' design to float for 90 seconds in a water landing, searchers never found a single oil slick or piece of floating debris. If they had run out of fuel and ditched in the sea, the emergency gear would have floated. Instead, 14 men and 5 aircraft were simply gone. The military immediately responded. They dispatched this twin-engine Martin Mariner flying boat, carrying a crew of 13 and specifically equipped to handle major ocean rescues. Minutes after takeoff, the mariner sent a brief routine message about wind conditions. Then it entered the same airspace to search for survivors and vanished instantly. The anomaly claimed the initial victims and then swallowed the rescue party sent to find them. The zone acts as a baited trap. By dawn, the military launched one of the most intensive rescue operations in history. Hundreds of planes and naval destroyers meticulously combed over 380,000 square miles of the Atlantic. They found nothing. The Coast Guard maintains a grounded stance. They attribute the missing vessels to the area's swift Gulf Stream, the natural 20-degree variations in the magnetic compass, and human error. But look at the USS Cyclops, a 19,000-ton freighter carrying over 300 people. It left no wreckage and sent no distress signal. In this specific geometry, over 100 ships and planes have vanished without leaving a single piece of identifiable debris for searchers to find. Today, aircraft carry computerized memory systems, transponders, and automatic recovery beacons designed specifically to broadcast through severe damage. Yet, vessels continue to slip off the radar in this exact geometry and never return. We have mapped the ocean floor and built machines that navigate by satellite, but an unmapped force still exists off the American coast, an anomaly capable of entirely erasing human beings and advanced technology from existence without a single moment of warning.